Hello and welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art, and today we are exploring Fahrenheit 451, and I'm looking at pages 1 through 21 or so of part 1, entitled The Hearth and the Salamander. Before we get to that, I want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items here. First of all, if you haven't yet liked and subscribed this channel, I would love for you to do that. We're getting close to 500 subscribers, and I'm really looking forward to crossing that 500 subscriber mark. Also stay tuned because I have some other videos coming up that are not Bradbury related. I have a book review on Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver that I'll be doing, and comparing that to David Copperfield. And then of course we have Jane Austen July coming up. That has really snuck up on me, and I'm hoping to do some videos for that and participate in that readathon. So I hope to get a TBR out sometime next week. We've got at the end of the month the Ray Bradbury Short Story Club as well. Well, I'll be reading the next story in that list. I'm really going to try to keep on schedule with my video production for this next month. But now that life is kind of over this one busy hurdle, I've got some more things coming up that are really causing a lot of busyness in my life. On top of all this, my computer has decided it might be time to die. It's been something of an adventure trying to coax life out of it and keep it going for a while longer, because I don't want to replace my laptop right now. Those things can be pricey. So, you know, we're hobbling along here. I suppose worst comes to worst, I can film something on my cell phone, which is also kind of struggling lately. So basically, technology around me is falling apart. My life is wildly out of control, and all I want to do is read a book. But we are here today to talk about Fahrenheit 451. And what I wanted to do first of all is to bring up a couple of the comments that were left on the video of my introduction video. That again, I examined the introduction by Neil Gaiman, and the channel Pick Your Pop Culture Poison just commented, "Love this book. The first page alone is beautiful," and absolutely agree with that. Some Bradbury writes with such poetry that it's really stirring to read it. And then Adrian, who's a good friend of the channel, I believe that comment says, "Thank you for this wonderful introduction to Fahrenheit 451. I read it last year when you recommended it here on your YouTube channel. I thoroughly enjoyed the book and will follow along when you begin to read it next week." So that really makes me very happy. So thank you so much, Adrian, for doing that. To know that a book recommendation I made, somebody else took it and read it and loved it just like I do. And again, if you are not reading along with us currently, always feel free to leave comments. Even once these videos are all out and it's, 100 years in the future, leave a comment. I'll answer. Well, depends on how far in the future it is, but please always leave comments. I want to hear from you and what you think of this. And if you've read this book before, especially, and want to just comment along as we read along, that would be fine. I'd love to hear from you. And then Amy Schmelzer 6445 said, "I recently read Fahrenheit 451, but my copy was printed in the 90s. Thank you for discussing Gaiman's intro, which wasn't in mine. Digital books, while great, have the chance to be edited easily like was done in 1984's world. I will always be pro physical books. It's proof that some truth existed at the time of publication. Anything digital can be modified and we don't know who or what or when or why." Amy is absolutely right. And that is something that we need to be careful about as we embrace some of this digital technology. And it actually has happened that when they update, sometimes Kindle will update a book and things will get changed in it. I've heard people mention that that's happened to them before. I don't know if it's anything serious, but the technology is certainly there where they can just do that. The one thing I like about this book is that you can't change it. The only way to get rid of this is to burn it. And, well, we don't want to do that, as we'll find out in this story. Another good friend of the channel, Kellyanne Mitchell, she said, "Fabulous introduction to this essential book. I can't wait to discuss this one with you all. When I read Neil Gaiman's introduction, I was blown away." Yeah, same. I expected nothing less from him, as his writing is enthralling. His introduction says so much about the book and the way that our society, if we are not careful, where we can possibly end up. Two quotes that stood out to me that you mentioned but are worth repeating were, again, Gaiman's quote that fiction is a lie that tells us true things over and over. I'm going to just go ahead and dive into what these opening these 20 pages are. And what we read here is we're introduced to three of the main characters. The main character himself, Guy Montag. And then he, one night, as he's walking home from work, meets a young lady who says her name is Clarisse. She's 17 and crazy, as she says, and I love that. That's what I would say. When I was 17, I used to tell people that too, that I was 17 and crazy. And then we're introduced to Guy's wife, Mildred. So we already get some symbolism about fire in what part 1 is called, the Hearth and the Salamander. The hearth means the home, and the hearth is specifically a reference to like the fireplace, the part that keeps you warm, the part where the family would gather around and sit and talk and be alive. And yet when Guy comes in, especially into the bedroom, the most intimate of all rooms of the house, it says, "It was like coming into the cold marbled room of a mausoleum after the moon has set. Complete darkness, not a hint of the silver world outside, the windows tightly shut, the chambers a tomb world where no sound from the great city could penetrate. The room was not empty." Into this hearth and home where that should be alive, he comes, into it's like a tomb. And then the salamander is symbolic of fire. It's a creature that supposedly can withstand the heat of flames. So you get a really interesting visual here, along with a picture of the phoenix on Guy's costume. But let's go ahead and dive into the story itself. And the opening sentence is one that's considered a classic, and I certainly won't disagree with that. It says, "It was a pleasure to burn. It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fists, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history." And it just goes on talking about this beautiful picture of this horrific scene of Guy burning books. So in the story, we're just introduced really briefly to him. He's walking on his way home, just, minding his own business, when we get this quote: "Before he reached the corner, however, he slowed as if a wind had sprung up from nowhere, as if someone had called his name." And this sentence caught me because I feel like now we're beginning to change. Something is happening. Something is there, and he senses it. Perhaps literally the winds of change. And he sees Clarisse coming to him, surrounded by these leaves of autumn, this visual that Bradbury loves so much. And it's like she was floating, she wasn't walking, she was just kind of floating her way towards him, with all the leaves swirling around her. She's dressed in white, and it makes this whispering sound. It's very ghostly, almost, her appearance. So he introduces himself, he walks with her, they talk a little bit. She mentions that she likes to smell and look at things, and sometimes stay up all night walking and watch the sunrise. As he's talking, he remembers, he's brought this memory of one time, it says, as a child in a power failure, his mother had found and lit a last candle, and there had been a brief hour of rediscovery, of such illumination that space lost its vast dimensions and drew comfortably around them, and they, mother and son alone, transformed, hoping that the power might not come on again too soon. And do you remember that? When times when you lose power in a storm or something, there's almost something nostalgic about it that, well, I can't be on my phone, I can't watch TV, I can't have anything power related. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit around, we're going to talk, we could read by the candle. we're thrown back into a different age. At times it's good for us to slow down and maybe to shut those things off so that we have time, to smell things and look at things and stay up all night and walk and watch the sunrise. Those little joys in life that we often don't make time for. Well, before I go on, sorry, I was just having more computer trouble. My computer kept freezing, so I'm just going to switch and record right off my phone. So sorry about the quality of sound dropping, but we'll make do. Then she asks him, I think, a very inciting question, and that is, do you ever read the books you burn? And he laughs and says that's illegal. So we get set up in this world. Really, the base of it is that he's in a world where it's illegal to read books. As they discuss, she asks, why are you laughing? And he says, I don't know. And, and then why do you ask me that? And she said, because you laugh when I haven't been funny and you answer right off. You never stop to think what I've asked you. Somebody gave me advice once that said, if somebody asks you a very difficult question, one of the best things you can do is to not answer right away, but just stop and think, even for 5 seconds. Wait to develop an answer. But in this society where they don't prize reading, they don't value that. They're just always on the go. They're going constantly faster and faster. As we find out, there's 200-foot long billboards because people are driving so fast. We still want to advertise to them, so they have to extend those things like that. She asks another question about him. She says, are you happy? And this is a question that just gets into his brain and feeds away at it, and he can't seem to let it go. And I love how Bradbury, with a very minimum of effort, with just a couple of questions, sets his groundwork and begins to get Guy to realize, wait, am I happy? I don't think I am. And do I read books? I don't. Do I? And to begin to slow down. Like, she disrupted his walk home, his routine. I think even the fact that he was walking rather than driving shows us that Guy is maybe not your normal guy, your average guy. So there's something different about him. He gets home and we get this wonderful little paragraph. He says to himself, of course I'm happy. What does she think? I'm not? He asked the quiet rooms. He stood looking up at the ventilator grill in the hall and suddenly remembered that something lay hidden behind the grill, something that seemed to peer down at him now. He moved his eyes quickly away. Now, let's keep that paragraph in mind as we continue on to, as we read, because this something in the grill in his wall is going to be haunting at him and gnawing on his brain. He comes in, he finds his wife is passed out. In fact, she overdosed. He says, and he realizes as he sees her and comes into their grave-like bedroom that he was not happy. He wore his happiness like a mask, and the girl had run off across the lawn with the mask, and there was no way of going to knock on her door and ask for it back. Again, with just that quick introduction, those questions, she was able to just peel it all away. The mask has been taken off, and there's no turning back. Well, his wife, Mildred, he realizes she overdosed again on medication. And these two, plumber-like medical technicians come and clean her out. He's got to clean them out both ways. Got to clean out the blood as well as clean out the stomach. And Montag is just finding this to be horrific. And they're just callous almost in how they're treating her. And he asks, why didn't they send a doctor? And he says, well, this happens so often. It's like a manual labor kind of job now, 9-10 cases a night over a few years. It just becomes routine. That's the kind of world that Guy is in. His wife is maybe representing the basic culture of the world. And she wakes up the next morning with no thought or remembrance of what happened. She's watching her shows. Montag wasn't able to sleep without a sleep lozenge. I think there's a lot we could say about that. That this society seems to be heavily medicated, heavily stupefied, visually overstimulated to the point where they just can't think for themselves. They can't think deeply. They can't do anything. And so we find the next morning she's plugged into the seashell ear thimbles, which really remind me of all those, like those, little AirPods that you stick in your ear. And I think what's interesting is that she's listening to this, whatever it is, and she doesn't even take them out when Guy speaks with her. She's able to read lips, but she's so self-absorbed that she won't even take the time to turn it off. Like my wife and I will listen to audiobooks a lot and we'll have earphones in a lot, but usually when we talk to each other, it's common courtesy. You turn it off, you speak. But she wouldn't even do that. And then he goes and sees what kind of, what she's up to, and she's watching television. They've got 3 screens. She wants a 4th one. It's these shows that she can be engaged in. She has a line that she can read or say, but it really adds nothing to the conversation. In fact, it's just a very frivolous content. And that's what passes for entertainment. And that's how she passes her day. And not just her, but I believe most of the culture that this world takes place in. And then as we wrap up the section we were going to read, he's out walking again. Guy is. It's raining, and he meets Clarisse again. And Clarisse finds that he's tasting water, or tasting the rain. And she found a dandelion and puts it under his chin to see if he's in love. She says that, it's not showing the yellow, so he's not in love with anyone. And he's offended by that. He's trying to say, of course I am. And then as they're talking, she admits that she has to go see a psychologist because she does things like go outside and taste the rain, to stop and smell flowers, to talk to people instead of, watching the families on TV or whatever. She does those things, so they think she's crazy. So she runs off and left him standing in the rain, the book says. He goes on, only after a long time did he move. And then, very slowly as he walked, he tilted his head back in the rain for just a few moments and opened his mouth. And I love that she's beginning to have an influence on him. And so now he's doing something that is frivolous, that is, accomplishes nothing. It doesn't, why does he do it? It's to experience it. It's a way to connect himself with the world around him, the real world, not the fake technology, not the noisy earphones, the constant flickering TV screens, none of that. It's connecting with the real world in a very small way. And I love how we are just dropped right into the story, and something is happening with Guy. He's changing, he's questioning, he's starting to see things for how they really are. Mildred was like this corpse, dead in this mausoleum, and it describes her face as mirror-like, which I wonder, if that's reflecting, Guy is seeing himself for who he really was, as seen in the features of his wife, that, she was dead, passed out on drugs, overdosed and dying. So that's through the first 21 pages. I'd like to let me know what you think about the start of this story. What are some of the symbolic things that you're picking up on? What are some of the quotes that you like? Just different things. Let's keep the conversation going there in the comments. I want to ask, so then I want to conclude with a couple of questions that we can be used to help discuss this. And first of all, have you ever had anyone in your life that impacted you like Clarisse impacts Guy? With just even a brief time you might have known them, that they completely changed your outlook, completely changed your path. Who is that in your life? Do you have somebody like that in your life? Secondly, why do you think it's important to slow down? to maybe at times disconnect from technology, to stop and taste the rain, to smell the flowers, to talk versus stare at a screen all day, which, hey, I'm on BookTube. I'm guilty of that. If you've done that, how do you find that to be helpful? Do you find it to be helpful? And what benefits are there in that? What do you think about the thing that is lurking in his grill? For those of you who know, be careful of spoilers. It's gonna be really hard how not to give away spoilers here, but maybe I need to set up an actual Voxer channel because you can record audio content on that. I might have to do that. So, but let me know what you think there. Another thing, I love the imagery that Bradbury is setting, especially with Guy coming into his house and finding it dead. Your house should be alive and warm and happy, but he's unhappy. It's cold and it's dead. What do you think about that? I love for you to leave comments, questions, anything, and I'll address them in the next video. Hopefully my computer and technology continues on. If I ever have to postpone a week, it's because of that. So I really apologize. But we'll keep things limping along as best we can. So for this next week, be reading pages, if you're reading in this book, it's pages 22 through 45, which will bring you to this sentence. The hound, he thought, it's out there tonight. It's out there now. If I opened the window, he did not open the window. Well, a little teaser for what's to come. So read that section about 23, 25 pages or so, and we'll get into the heart of this story. We're going to meet some new characters and find out what Guy does on his job. To close this out, I want to leave you with this quote. How did it start? How did you get into it? How did you pick your work, and how did you happen to think to take the job you have? You're not like the others. I have seen a few. I know. When I talk, you look at me. When I said something about the moon, you looked at the moon last night. The others would never do that. The others would walk off and leave me talking, or threaten me. No one has time anymore for anyone else. You're one of the few who put up with me. That's why I think it's so strange you're a fireman. It just doesn't seem right for you, somehow. Well, we'll find out more next week. But in the meantime, take care and happy reading.